Hello, my name's Charles Russell. I'm the Technical Director of Bitterbird Media. And this is the second in a series I'm doing on JavaScript. Today we're going to talk about tools and implementation, with a heavy emphasis on tools. But at the end, we're actually going to show you how to get JavaScript into a web page. So the very first question people have when they're getting into a new technology is, what do I have to buy? In the case of JavaScript, not a thing. You already have a text editor and you already have a browser. However, as with anything, you can get tools to help you. Now, the Notepad is the text editor that comes with Windows. It is not very robust. It'll do text editing and do a pretty good job, but it doesn't do syntax highlighting, which you'll find to be very useful. It doesn't maintain the indent. In other words, you have to manually push the tab to indent your code on every line. It also has size limitation. Notepad++, which is a free download you can get, is a much, much better option. It has the syntax highlighting. It has a lot more selection tools. It maintains indent. And it has syntax highlighting for most languages. Now, that's not the only free editor out there available for Windows. There's Crimson Editor, which I've used and liked, and it has a derivative now called Emerald Editor that I know nothing about. For some, that might be better. I think that Notepad++ is more feature-rich. However, there is another editor that is feature-rich called Komodo Edit, and it's from ActiveState, and it is also free. And it works across any platform. So if you're using a Macintosh, you can get a version of it. If you're using Linux, you can get a version of it, or Windows. So if you're working across different platforms, Komodo Edit might be a good choice for you. Now, there are commercial editors available as well. Ultra Edit was one that I used for a long time. I enjoyed it. And for many years, it was my only editor until Notepad++, and a lot of the features that I liked Ultra Edit for were in Notepad++, and so I went with Notepad++ going forward. Now, Windows isn't the whole world in spite of what Microsoft wants you to think. There are other operating systems out there. So let's talk about the Mac. Mac, you have Text Wrangler, which I believe is the default. I don't own a Mac, so I can't tell you for sure. But one of the really popular text editors out there is Sublime, but it's commercial and costs money. TextMate used to be commercial, but it's now you can get that for free now as well. And it was before Sublime the go-to text editor. The other popular ones out there I've heard about are Coda and BBEdit. They are both commercial. They both cost some money. I think most of these are under $100. Now, you have the Linux world. Linux goes back to another operating system. It's a basically PC version of Unix, and it has because of its Unix roots, you have a lot of choices. There's Nano, VI, and Emacs, which are available at the command line. Of those, I like Nano. It's the easiest to use. But I prefer the graphical editors, which, having started in Windows like most of us did, or the Mac, I find a lot more comfortable to use. And if you've got the Ubuntu distribution of Linux, you already have gedit, which is one that I liked and have used a lot. But I've been playing a little bit with Kate. I haven't seen the advantage of it over gedit yet, but I'll use it a little more and see. I've also heard of T is very popular. Now, some people like another choice. They like the graphical editors. They're doing all their HTML and stuff with some sort of graphical editor. The most popular of these, of course, is Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver costs a lot of money. It will do a lot of different things, and it does have a pretty good JavaScript editor, and also has a lot of snippets that you can just stick right in there. Coffee Cup is another commercial editor. It has a lot of plugins. It seems to be very useful. It's also popular. But you might want to look at the open source alternatives if this is the way you want to go. The Bluefish and Composer are open source alternatives to the same thing. And I'm cheap. I like free, so I would go with those if I was going that way. I don't tend to use these, but if I was going that way, I'd probably go with Composer. Now, the other thing I'm going to talk about is integrated development environments. Now, this is less important if all you're doing is JavaScript, but if you're working in PHP or Java or Ruby or these others, you might want to have uh, a good text editor. Now, I've chose these because they work across multiple languages. Is one of the reasons that I have. You do have language-specific IDEs like PHP Storm. But for for web development, I think these are a good choice. NetBeans is Oracle as the product from Oracle. It's distributed open source and free. You can do PHP. You can do just about everything but Ruby in it. Eclipse can do everything. Although a lot of people find it's a little heavy. There is a derivative of Eclipse called Aptana that's specifically designed for web development, and I've used both Eclipse and Aptana, and I like them. Is really good integrated development environment. Of course, if you're doing .NET programming, you're using C# or VB.NET, Visual Studio is a good choice. And then Komodo has a commercial IDE, integrated development environment, above and beyond Komodo Edit. And this lets you do all the things that these other IDEs can do, and it also works with Ruby and Perl and PHP, and I've used that for years, and I owned it, and I liked it. But one of the advantages that people use IDEs for when they're working in a specific language is to be able to trace code. In JavaScript, that's not so much of a problem. That's because most of the browsers have these tools already built into it. Microsoft has the F12 developer tools, so if you push F12 on Microsoft, you're going to get a full set of suite that lets you select elements to see what the name of them are and identify what they are. So if you're going to do DOM manipulation, we'll talk about that a little later. Then it also has things in there that let you trace your JavaScript code line by line, put stops in, jump over code segments. There's a lot of really cool features. This is available for all the other browsers too. Chrome has the developer tools. Firefox, you have two choices. Actually, you have Web Console, which comes when you actually install Firefox, and then Firebug, which is an add-on, and then you can get a lot of add-ons to plug into Firebug that actually help it. And for Opera, there's Dragonfly. Now, in this particular series of videos, I'm going to predominantly be using Firefox and Firebug because I like both, and it's been around a while, and that's where I'm comfortable. So that's enough on tools. We've talked a little bit about all of the things that are available, but how do I actually get JavaScript into my web page? Why a web page and why not something else? Because the web is where JavaScript is generally used. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the script tag. And here I call it the action hero. And that's because this is the tag that starts all of the action. It has two attributes that are commonly used. Source, that tells us where to find files if we're using an external JavaScript file. And then type. You're usually going to see text/JavaScript or application/JavaScript. I can see no difference. Application JavaScript is probably more proper now, I guess. But they both work the same. Now, type is required for XHTML or HTML4 in strict mode. However, in HTML5, it is no longer required. It's assumed you're going to be using JavaScript. Now, the script tag can be used in two ways. You can use it to load an external file. I already mentioned that. And I have a little sample of that here. Notice that I've got the source tag. It has a JS/my.js. So in this case, I'm saying go out from wherever I've got my HTML file and go to a directory called JS. It could be JavaScript, scripts, whatever. It could be called thingamabob, whatever you want to call your scripts directory. And then there's a file in there called my.js I want you to load. And then I have the type attribute here. Now notice that I put a closing script tag on, even though I have it there. Unlike the image tag in or the BR tag in HTML, you actually have to have that closing tag, even if you're loading an external file. I'm not sure why, but it is required. Now another thing you can do is embed your JavaScript. There are some issues with this. I think it's a little harder to maintain. I like to be able to share my JavaScript across multiple pages. So having an external file makes a little more sense. However, there are people who like to use this, and if you're embedding, cutting, pasting embed code from YouTube, or you're using Google Analytics, they'll give you the embedded script to do like this. Again, this is somewhat questionable, and probably unless you have to, unless you have some good reasons, I would just as soon avoid it personally. Now here I've actually done a sample. In this case, I have the script tag, and inside that script tag, I actually have a JavaScript statement alert, which in this case will put out a little OK, little dialog box with OK. And the hello Welt will be the text that will actually be in there. That's German for hello world. That would be the first JavaScript program that you're actually seeing in this series. Now you could place the script tag in either the head or the head section of your HTML or the body. For some things like libraries, I do like to put it in the head. However, for custom code and for performance reasons, you might want to put it at the very bottom. It actually can improve quite a bit because JavaScript has to load wherever it has before it can go on to the next statement. So if you have, especially if you have really long JavaScript files, it makes a lot of sense to put them at the bottom so the rest of the page loads before your JavaScript. Now I'm going to talk about one other thing. And I'm only going to talk about it because there's still a lot of it out there. A lot of people still use it. And I need to complete the whole, lessons on how to do everything. But this is something you really want to avoid. This is called inline JavaScript. Now, inline, in this case, I have a button. And you usually have event attributes. There's a lot of these. There's like mouse out over. There are, mouse out events. So, basically focus. The problem with this is if you do this a lot, you're going to have this throughout your code, and when you go to maintain it, you have to find every place that you did something like this and then change it if you change your mind later on. And if you're a maintenance programmer and you're doing stuff like this, if somebody did this before you, you have a hell of a time trying to pull all that out and find it. You have to go through page by page by page. It's very time consuming. So think about the next guy that's going to come after you, or even yourself coming back later. Avoid doing this. So I've talked a little bit in this video about a few things. First thing, here's the bullet points. You don't have to spend money if you don't want to. There are a variety of both free and commercial tools available for any operating system that you want to use. Their IDEs are out there and may be useful for polyglot work. By polyglot, I mean multiple language programming. But the browser provides tools that offer many of the advantages that you get in IDE. JavaScript is added with the script tag, and the last point is to avoid inline script. So that's pretty much it for this video. On the next one, we're going to get a little deeper into JavaScript, and we're going to talk about variables. Until then, goodbye.